I've been coming to China for 28 years, and every time I come to Tiananmen Square, I still have that same sense of awe and power. Tiananmen Square, the center of power in China. Because everything is under the Communist Party, that's no state secret, and that is run by the leadership in Zhongnanhai. But the process of affecting laws and determining what are the specific proposals that will be addressed, that occurs here. And it's a really fascinating process that the more you understand it, the more you see the depth and sophistication. It is the high season of China's annual political meetings. The National People's Congress, China's top legislative body, and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, China's top advisory body. Together, the two large meetings are called Lianghui, or two sessions in the official English. Here in Beijing, I sense anticipation, excitement, and perhaps a touch of anxiety. China watchers scrutinize the two sessions, official speeches, press conferences, policy announcements, sideline comments, personnel positioning, or actions. How's the economy really tracking? What's with the priority programs? Any surprises, new policies? Can we spot signals? What's in the air? Attending the two sessions brings us closer to China. Who's behind me? The Olympic hurdler. Everybody, all the reporters are going after him. What it symbolizes is that all the delegates are here and chasing people, and it's designed to show a kind of openness that the delegates and everybody is accessible to the general public. So Yao Ming is coming. Now look at everybody running after him. It symbolizes the access that China wants to have to its delegates, and show the people through the media that there's tremendous access and that there's an openness and transparency. Of course, there's a lot more to transparency and openness than being able to see some famous athletes or just to talk to delegates for a few seconds. But you see a feeding frenzy here among reporters interviewing everybody they can see, pushing each other, shoving each other around. It's kind of fun. I think there's meaning to it in that China is wanting to have a kind of openness, to have access to its leaders. And I think that's a good sign. A long way to go, of course. About 3,000 lawmakers from all across China have come to Beijing for the annual session of the National People's Congress. It began with Premier Li Keqiang's government work report, in which he reviewed China's achievements and challenges in 2016 and outlined goals and tasks for 2017. As expected, the work report focused on economic reform and restructuring, as well as on people's livelihoods.
GDP is projected to grow by 6.5% approximately. However, in practice, we will strive for better.
Deputies are required to review the government's work report, though the ratified outcome is a foregone conclusion. 2017 is considered a linchpin year for implementing China's 13th five-year plan, leading to leadership's long-standing pledge to realize a moderately prosperous society by 2020. There are challenges, especially economic uncertainties and the need to reduce industrial overcapacity and corporate debt. The National People's Congress is the highest order of official state authority in China, possessing executive, government, legislative, and judicial powers. Such power includes amending the Constitution, enacting and amending basic laws, electing, as it were, the President and Vice President of China, the Premier of the State Council, the Procurator General, and the President of the People's Supreme Court. Equally important, the NPC has the right to supervise all these officials and their areas, exemplified by the Premier's work report of the government presented to the NPC. In addition, budgets and legislative bills must be approved by the NPC. It reveals no state secret that the common metaphor for the NPC in China as well as abroad is a rubber stamp, meaning that all policies and personnel decisions seemingly submitted to the NPC have already been made by party leaders. But as Chinese society becomes more complex and Chinese people more aware, this simplistic metaphor is becoming dated. I find it fascinating to watch the NPC evolve. In addition to handling state affairs, the two sessions is a platform for the public to communicate with the country's decision makers, exemplified by frequent press conferences that are usually packed. And what really strikes me is not just what's being said here, because that's kind of predictable, but the interaction between the Chinese reporters and the organizers and the representatives, because you can see a difference in the Chinese reporters, the energy, the kinds of questions they ask, trying to push as far as they can without getting in trouble or without saying something too sensitive, but yet they really want to push. And to me, that interaction between the representatives and the Chinese press is a real story here that we should watch. That's more indicative of what's happening in China than maybe the official pronouncements.
As China's legislators get to work in Beijing, we'll be looking at how some of the decisions they make affect ordinary Chinese people, balancing the pace of development, making affordable housing available to all, and dealing with a society where the balance of power is shifting from the young to the old.
All eyes are on the economy. I'll be spinning around to report on the opportunities and headwinds from the ground, from the business environment for foreign companies to the supply side reforms to the innovation and pollution.
These days, decisions taken here in Beijing affect not just the citizens, but bear great impact on the global economy. Is China finally taking the lead on economic globalization?
I'm watching two areas. First, signals on state-owned enterprise reform, and second, with China increasingly active internationally, the focus on foreign affairs. Security is understandably tight because delegates here are some of the most important people in China in all different fields. The CPPCC is unique to the Chinese political system, where one party, the Communist Party of China, the CPC, is the perpetually ruling party. The CPPC's role is threefold: offer political consultation, participate in decision-making, and provide democratic supervision. And it carries out these three responsibilities reflecting broad sectors of society. The claim is that the CPPCC enables multi-party cooperation in that there are 8 small so-called democratic parties, but in reality their impact is, well, how shall I put this, modest. Very good to see you. 非常好，再次见面。再见面。Thank you very much. See you again. Dr. Wang Jiefu is a standing committee member of the 12th CPPCC National Committee, a world-renowned liver transplant surgeon and a former Vice Minister of Health. He heads up the healthcare section of a major CPPCC subcommittee. Dr. Wang, how long have you been a member of the CPPCC?
I've been a member of CPPCC for over 10 years, 2 terms.
And this is a political organ that really has no parallel in other countries in quite the same way. How does it work in the Chinese system?
You are right. CPPCC is a very special and system in terms of China's political systems. We have the Communist Party, also have a government, also have a CPC and CPPCC, and different organizations and have different functions. You couldn't say it's low power. still play some very important role for the political consultation, also for the in policy making. We can give some suggestions. Also, we have some democratic supervision on the government.
So how does that actually work? Because the CPPCC has no legal power to implement things. So by what mechanism can you influence high leadership or officials in the Communist Party and the government to listen to your ideas?
Every year we have some investigation, and actually it's assigned by the government. So, for instance, last year I have two major events for our investigation. One is the role of the key medical colleges in the healthcare reform. The second project for the investigation is the role of the traditional Chinese medicine in the healthcare reform.
Just describe the process itself. It was assigned by the government, but you took responsibility. What's the process?
So there's over 20 members join my team for the consultation, for the investigation.
And many of them are professionals, they're doctors?
All of them are specialists, experts. We know some problem. You know, in China there's a 19A. Also, the beginning of this century, there's a merge. You know merge? Yeah. The general university, actually medical school was consolidated into the general universities. Yeah. So we just went to the several provinces. So we just got some of the suggestions, some criticism to the systems, and we just collect all the opinions, suggestions, and as well as some criticism, and then when we wrote a report.
How long was the report? How many pages or how many characters?
Sure, in my room I have actually has a copy of this one. It's play a very important role because this is from the CPPCC and already get some documents, and through the CPPCC sent to the provincial CPPCC and sent to the different universities. They are just they should do something to make corrections. And Minister of Health will send our report to the local.
And when that's sent, is it the name on it, the CPPCC, or the Ministry?
Minister of Health.
Right.
With just attachment.
Okay.
They'll probably add some instructions.
Right.
And CPPCC have some critical suggestions, and
we recommend.
We recommend, and you must implement it.
But what is supervision? What entails supervision?
For instance, if you are as a president of a university, and then I found the report, it's a finger pointing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then they just worry about because the authority
has read it.
Yeah, it's ready. Yeah, because listen to the CPPCC, yeah. So should we double check? So
it's not a kind of an absolute authority, but it is enormous pressure on the
because the CPPC is not a bias. Yeah. Just the suggestions and the criticism with any bias. Yeah. So this is the pressure on it.
As a member of the CPPC, just approximately what percentage of your time over the whole year would you say is devoted to those kinds of activities?
No, for the first time, as I was the member of the CPPCC, at that time I still is the Vice Minister for Health.
Right.
I probably consists of a very small portion of my time for the CPPCC work. However, the second time, when I stepped down from the official position, Also, I'm already full minister and rank officials. I was selected as standing members of CPPCC. Yeah. Also, I'm the deputy director for the subcommittee of education, culture, and health and sports, and then of CPPCC. Now I play more and more time for the CPPCC work, probably and 1/3.
1/3, that's a lot.
Yeah, 1/3.
Because you still maintain your medical practice.
Yeah. Because every year I have to go down for investigation at least 6 provinces.
Oh, I see. Wow.
And then we'll hold, for CPPCC, we have a bi-weekly forum.
Oh.
Also, every 2 months, there's a conference for standing members. Also, we have a general and political consultation conference every 3 months. So there's still a lot of
activities.
Yeah, a lot of activities. Yeah.
Are we ready? China, a nation with the largest population on Earth, assuming a greater role economically and politically on the world stage. Understanding China is critical for all, though difficult for some. Behind the scenes of China's transformation, I'm Robert Lawrence Kuhn. Join me to get closer to China. Yang Jia is the only CPPCC member who is visually impaired. She is determined to change China's education for people with disabilities.
Though I have no sight, I have insight. I see opportunities instead of obstacles. The same is true for the country. I believe that through my own proposal, I think China will take on the path for inclusive education instead of special education. That's also the outcry and the need for people with disabilities. We should think deeper and not just talk about some of the problems, but really put forward some solutions which is workable. So our proposals is more useful and practical.
A primary task of CPPCC members is to research and submit proposals, providing consultation and a kind of supervision through critique. The CPPCC says it is well aware of public calls to improve its work and the need to address real concerns of people for their lives and livelihoods.
Some research activities and proposals are not deep enough. Timeliness is not strong. The democratic supervision work needs to be standardized. Some members do not exercise their functions well. The CPPCC's capacity building needs to be further strengthened. Some of the implementation of its function is not in place.
This year, more than 5,000 proposals were submitted, more than 4,000 filed for further action, almost 100% handled, and about 20% adopted or resolved. Categories: economy, society, culture, politics. Is really a body of experts who focus only on their area of expertise. And so that nobody pretends to know something that they don't.
Right, you're right. For instance, every year I have some the proposal.
Yeah.
And then the proposal is always related to what I know well.
Right.
For instance, you know the organ transplant. Yeah. So last year I proposed kidney transplant and should be covered by catastrophic yearly medical insurance. And then we get a very positive response from the government. And for this year, I will propose and the amendment of the organ transplant and regulations. Because our regulation was issued by State Council in the years of 2007. Is not in line with the development of the organ donation and the transplant at this stage. So I will make proposed amendment. Will get some content of organ donation should be included in the new amendment of organ and transplant regulations.
So when you have an idea in your area of expertise, even though you're not a minister, you're not in the government anymore, you've retired from that, when you're now making a proposal based on your expertise and recommend the CPPCC institute that, do you have to get approval for that? Do you have to get approval from the Ministry of Health? Do you have to get approval from the standing committee of the CPPCC itself? What kind of approval do you need for your subcommittee to be able to research a project that you think is important?
Probably you don't know the majority of members of the CPPCC, just like me,
right.
have some background.
Right.
And probably they are retired and officials from some CDC, from the Academy of Chinese Medicine, probably from the former directors of the hospitals.
And all their students are now the ones that are running.
Still have some of the connections.
Right. Right.
Every members of
CPPCC
and have the authority.
Everyone can do it. So you don't have to check to do a research project. But so how do you get resources? How do you get travel money or whatever you need?
No, for majority of CPPCC member is proposed according to their experience and the working experience. But for the subcommittee, we got the funding from the CPPCC.
Okay, so you have a basket of funds that you can allocate to individual projects.
Right.
So of your 88 members in the healthcare, if all of them have different projects, you can't do everything. So who decides which of those projects get done? And because you have a limited amount of funding, you have only a certain amount of funding.
I'm the deputy minister and deputy director of a subcommittee of CPPCC.
Right.
I'm in charge of health.
Okay.
So every year I go assignment, and this I make the suggestions. Also, I'm the policy making. So select 2 or 3 projects
for the whole committee.
For whole and subcommittee.
For the year.
For the year.
Okay. Those reports you do for CPC, but they will go to the government, Ministry of Health in your case. What responsibility does the Ministry of Health have to be responsive to you? Because they don't report to you.
This is there's some policy, and actually it's made by the CPC, also by the central government. Make every department, every ministries accountable.
Okay.
For the suggestions, consultation, and supervision from the CPPCC. They must respond.
Okay. To the untrained ear, the structure and phrases of statements and speeches at the 2 sessions here may sound similar, even identical to those of previous years. But listen closely. You'll hear small but revelatory differences that one learns to discern. We sift for nuances as if for gems, seeking subtle novelties with explanatory power. China's ruling party, the Communist Party of China, CPC, prides itself on careful, incremental change. And usually this is the case. But occasionally we find sharper breaks with past practices, and it is those moments for which we are especially on watch.
And those for the members, they are not satisfied at all, not only for the criticism, critical thinkings and so on. They really think of if they have any substantial things for the supporting for the policies, for supporting for the programs, for the changes.
And support often means not agreeing with the status quo or how wonderful things are, but to be critical thinking is to develop new ideas. The best way to support leadership is not always to agree with them.
Yes, you're right. That's right. And then also not even for those things they feel dissatisfied from social phenomena, policy phenomena. They are not simply making complaints, or they really want putting their thinkings into policies, put into the programs, helping in changes and participating for promoting the changes, which I think is a very positive thing.
What were your impressions? How might it differ this year from some of the previous years?
Yeah, I think it's a very strong impression is that at this moment, the party and government really wants to have a good advice, good suggestions, good programs. And the Political Consultative Committee, they themselves has a big appearance or big motivations to provide or try their best to provide for the needs of changes, for the needs of the policy things, for the reforms and so on. So it's both sides has the attractions and the needs. That's the very strong impression. The party government needs to have good ideas, and then the members of the committees has a strong wish to provide.
The members have a feeling of increasing freedom, that if they're critical of an ongoing activity, they're less likely to get in trouble than
That's right. That's very yeah. That's a whole through the last 5 years. That's a very strong impression that they encourage people to talk anything what you really want to talk. At the same time, appeal you or ask you the responsibilities, the realities, the much seriousness for taking the responsibilities or realize its duties for the members.
How is it all working? While the NPC gets more coverage, especially Premier Li Keqiang's work report of the government, I find the CPPCC more probative of the Chinese political system. The CPPCC has no legal de jure authority. It works through suggestion and persuasion based on the members' expertise and experience. This can work because the Chinese public has become more aware and more opinionated, catalyzed by social media, so that leaders and officials must now listen more closely and more seriously. Thus, the actual de facto power of the CPPCC has been increasing. There are now specific rules that compel officials to respond to proposals. Is this a binding system of checks and balances, as is the Western democratic model? Of course not. But the CPPCC is becoming a mechanism for representing many segments of society, as well as for channeling public interests. While some officials still feel that scattershot parochial proposals are more a hindrance than a help, attitudes are changing, if only because China's senior leaders recognize the need for diverse societal inputs and are requiring officials to treat these proposals as a meaningful part of their formal responsibilities. That's a good sign. The big question, though, is whether this rather low-power checks and balance system will remain sufficient in an ever more complex society. That's closer to China.